Sure.
Let's get started. So welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Dory Schultz.
And I'm Natasha de Sherbinin.
And Natasha, would you mind introducing yourself?
Of course. All right. So I'm the Director of College Advising at A-List. A little bit about my background. I have some admissions experience at Brandeis University. Before joining A-List, I was the Director of College Counseling at a high school in Boston. And I've worked with hundreds of students on the college application process, applying to all sorts of schools, engineering schools, business schools, performing arts schools, you name it. And I probably worked with a student applying to that type of school.
My name is Dory Schultz. I'm the Director of Tutoring at A-List, and I'm one of the few people working here who has worked in every department. So I have been a tutor, I still am a tutor, I'm one of the senior tutors. I've worked in our direct instruction department, teaching classes. I've worked in our professional development department, leading professional development seminars all over the country. And I've worked in our college advising department, helping students write essays and sort of perfect their applications. Natasha's really the advising expert here. I think I'm a great essay advisor.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Natasha. But, you know, I don't personally have admissions experience unlike Natasha. So she's going to be really leading the day, and I think she's got a lot of interesting stuff to say.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go. So what's the, Natasha, why do you visit colleges? Like, why is it important to spend some time going on college visits? What can you get out of a college visit that you can't get from just doing research online?
Yeah, sure. So there's a number of reasons that you want to actually physically see the actual campus and walk around the campus and see it firsthand. I would say the main reason is it's really helpful for students to be able to see the campus and picture themselves there, and that's often pretty difficult to do from the pictures on the website. A lot of schools now have these virtual college tours you can do on their websites. Not all of them offer that. But they have gotten pretty high tech with what they can offer. So you can get a pretty good experience from looking around the virtual college tours, but there's really nothing like getting actually on the campus, because not only can you see the buildings firsthand and walk around the campus, but you get to interact with students and professors and admissions officers in person. So that leads to my next point, which is you can ask questions that you can't find the answers to online. And you can get real responses from people who have experienced it. You know, talking to a student is invaluable.
Right. So, you know, every college is going to have its list of frequently asked questions, but a lot of those questions aren't going to be the types of things that you can ask a student or you can ask a professor. They're going to be sort of general questions, whereas really getting that personal feeling, something you just can't do any other way. Why else is it important to actually go there in person?
Right. So a number of colleges will look for what they call demonstrated interest. And what demonstrated interest means is that you have shown the college that you were really interested in attending their school. And you can do that in a number of ways, one of which is emailing the college or maybe liking their social media page or calling an admissions rep. Attending an info session at your school. But one of the the biggest, most important ways to demonstrate interest is actually to get onto the campus. Not every school cares about demonstrated interest. I've listed a few here. This is by no means a complete list. If you are looking to see if your college it values demonstrated interest, an easy way to do that is just to go online, go on Google, type in the name of your college and demonstrated interest. And it will come up and show you if demonstrated interest is something that's important to that school. If it is important, then you definitely should visit and make sure when you're on campus that you're doing an official tour and you're registered for the information session, that your name's actually down. If you go to campus and you just do a tour on your own, a self-guided tour, or maybe you know someone at that school, so you're doing a tour with a family friend, that's great, but you aren't going to be on, you're not going to be able to track that you've been on campus, and so it won't count towards demonstrated interest.
Right, and some schools weigh demonstrated interest more strongly than other schools.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So some schools taking the tour is going to actually substantially boost your application over students who have not taken an official guided tour.
Exactly right.
All right, great. When is the right time to go and visit colleges? When should you start doing this?
Sure. So students can start as early as freshman year. When you're in your freshman and 10th grade years, that's typically the time that you're exploring colleges. So at this time, you don't have a targeted list necessarily, but it's a good idea to just get on campuses and see what college is like, and just be really open-minded. That is really just a time of exploration. And your 11th grade year, that is typically the year that most students are visiting campuses. And there's a couple times that you can do that, but I always recommend that students should visit campus when college students are, when school's in attendance. So when college students are there, so they have the opportunity to really see what it's like. And so that's why we recommend using the winter breaks, whether it be over the upcoming holidays, if the school's open. Typically, if you have a longer holiday, they might be open around the holidays. You could visit during the February or March or April vacations. So making sure you're maximizing that time when school is still in session. That's important in junior year for starting to create your actual college list.
Why is it important for school to actually be in session? Are there any other reasons aside from just there being students there?
Well, you definitely want to see the buildings, and oftentimes during the summer, while buildings can be open, you're not really seeing them to the full potential, and you're not really seeing what they're used for, and some can be closed. Also, I will get to this later in the slideshow, but you want to be able to interact with professors as well, maybe even sit in on a class, all of which you can't do if school is not in session.
Right. A lot of my students have said that sitting in on classes was some of the most valuable parts of their college tours, because they really got a sense of what classes were like. I mean, that's why you go to college. It's
right.
to take classes. And so sitting in on a class or two can give you a great concept of what student interaction with professors is like, even getting some ideas of classes they might want to take, professors they might want to take classes with. It's a valuable thing. What about in senior year?
Yep, so senior is all about making that decision. So at this point, you already have your college list, you likely have put together your applications, and you're really making that final decision. So maybe it's revisiting a school you've already visited to decide if you want to apply early decision to that particular college, or perhaps it's in the spring when you're visiting a school to decide, I've been admitted to these 5 schools, now I need to decide which of these 3 I want to attend. And so using that spring break time or whenever you have time that spring to make sure you're revisiting those schools and ensuring it's a place that you can picture yourself for the next 4 years.
Okay, great. So we're going to visit colleges. We've decided, we know why. We know when we're going to do it. We want to do it when school is in session and take advantage of a time when maybe we as high schoolers are off school, but hopefully there are some classes running and buildings are open. How do you choose which ones to visit?
Great question. So there are hundreds and hundreds of colleges in the U.S., so it can be hard to start to narrow them down. Depending on what year you are in high school, it kind of guides, like I said, which types of schools you might visit. Especially during those exploration years, and I would say even your junior year when you're a little bit more focused in your college search, you really want to be able to visit a variety of colleges and not rule out one particular type of school. Often students don't know what a small liberal arts college looks like until they get on campus, and then they see, oh, actually, I do want a smaller school. So I always recommend visiting a small liberal arts college and a large research university.
Even if a student already thinks they know, like, I definitely want to go to a large research university, should they still visit small liberal arts colleges?
Yes, and I would say, if that student gets on that small liberal arts college campus and they don't like it, that to me is not a waste of time. You are kind of narrowing your options and really zeroing on what you want and what is a good fit for you. And a college tour can only give you more information about yourself. It's a really reflective process, I think, and can help students even if they decide they don't want to apply to that particular school.
Great. What is a liberal arts college? Like,
that's a great question.
We talk about this all the time.
Right. So a liberal arts college, typically they're on the smaller side. When I say small, I usually mean below, I would say 3,000 and usually even under 2,000 students. Liberal arts colleges offer, I would say, more of a well-rounded education. So students typically have a core curriculum that they need to take classes in all different subjects. So they're going to have to take a class in math, science, history, a language, almost like, a high school curriculum, but typically just one class in each of those areas. The core curriculum varies at every small liberal arts college. There's no standard there, but it's different than a large research university where you might go in and you're entering the School of Business, and practically every class you're taking is business focused. Or, you know, if you attend a large research university, they often are more focused on the research than a small liberal arts college. And so they might have a variety of different schools, including a school of education, a school of arts and sciences, a school of even, you know, health sciences. It varies, but the difference is there's many schools within that university, whereas a small liberal arts college is just one school that houses all of the different majors.
That was a great explanation.
Lengthy, I know, but it's important to know the difference, certainly.
Absolutely. So we talked about size and we talked about college versus university. What about urban versus rural? Do you think it's valuable for students to sort of visit different types of areas that schools are in?
Definitely. So the experience of attending college in a rural versus urban location is very different and can definitely influence the culture of the school, the opportunities that are at the school. And so I would say it's very important to see both schools at urban locations and also rural. I work with a lot of New York City students who do want to stay in the city, and I think that's great. There's so many opportunities in New York City. But I always encourage those students to at least see one school that might be more in a rural location or just a smaller city. So that they have the opportunity to picture what it would be like to get outside of a larger city.
Right, and I also think a lot of students don't really realize, you know, what some rural e-campuses can look like. I know I'm from California originally, and there are some campuses that are technically urban campuses, like UC Santa Cruz, that really feels much more like a rural campus because it's in the middle of a forest, and it's beautiful, and you sort of have the best of both worlds.
Again, why it's important to get on campus and visit it, because some people might not think that
exactly.
Near Santa Cruz.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and I mean, you think of Santa Cruz as a beach town too. So you've got the beach right there. Your school is in a forest. You've also got a city. It's schools like that really can offer great opportunities for a study life balance. Anything else about public versus private? You mentioned that here on the slide.
Sure. I always encourage students to look at public versus private, especially if they're considering applying for financial aid. It's really important to have a balanced list of both public and private schools. And so I always recommend at least go see one public school just to see what it's like, because they're often the most affordable. Not always, but can be an affordable option for families.
And you mentioned varying acceptance rates. Now, if you're a senior, I would say you probably have a pretty good idea. I mean, if it's February and you're a senior, it's a little bit late to be going on your preliminary school visits. But if you're a senior and you're just about to be a senior, you're going on school visits, you've got a pretty good idea of where you're going to fit in and what schools are going to be good fits for you. But if you're a freshman or sophomore, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to know where you're going to end up. You might not know what your standardized test scores are going to look like. You're hopefully going to have the very best grades that you can, but no one really knows what's going to happen sophomore year, junior year. So especially for freshmen and sophomores who are getting a jump start, they're going to want to visit school with varying acceptance rates, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say one kind of major no-no is to do what I call the Ivy League tour, right? Looking only at the Ivy League schools. There's a few reasons for that, but one of which is that there's no student who, at least I would ever allow to only apply to Ivy League schools. You want a balanced list, a list that's going to have your likely schools, your match schools, and your reach schools. And also, every Ivy League is very different, and I think that a student who applies to every single one hasn't done their homework to figure out what school is going to be the best fit for them. And that's all what the college visit is about, is really figuring out what is the best fit for you. And usually, you can find a really good fit school that has, acceptance rates ranging from 80% all the way to 5%. And so to me, it's not about the acceptance rate, it's about finding that fit.
Great. So let's talk about some sort of concrete plans. How do you plan your college visit?
Right. So my rule is no more than 2 to 3 in a day. And the reason for that is all the schools will start to just blend together if you see too many in one day. My cap is 2, but I understand that if you're trying to cram a bunch in, my maximum that I would suggest would be 3. In terms of scheduling, usually, the admissions website has a link to either directly register for an upcoming info session, Some schools still do the old school, call up the admissions office and arrange a tour, but most of them at this point have a feature where you can just see the availability online and book a tour online.
So you mentioned doing two, maybe three schools in a day. About how long will a tour take,
Sure.
and how long should you spend on campus aside from that tour?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, I recommend that students register for both the tour and info session. Most schools will have them back to back. Tours can range, depending on how big the campus is, from to 45 minutes to an hour. Typically, maybe an hour 15 is the average. And then info sessions, usually I would say half hour to 45 minutes, even an hour sometimes. So with that, 2 hours on average for both. And then I do recommend spending some time after the tour or before, depending when it falls in the day, to walk around the campus a little bit on your own. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit down the road in the presentation.
Great. So you mentioned on this slide researching schools in advance in order to formulate your list of questions. What questions should you be asking? Or do you want to cover that in a second?
Yeah, we'll get to that in one minute.
Okay, sorry, Natasha. So during the visit, other tips you have?
Sure. So I always tell students, especially in the day of a smartphone, just take a lot of photos on the trip or on the tour so that you do have that memory when you get back to your house. You can kind of take a look at all the different photos of the campuses and try to remember the different campuses. Obviously, you want to be respectful of the tour guide and you don't want to have your phone out the entire tour, but it is reasonable to take a couple pictures throughout the tour.
What about taking notes? Is that appropriate to do during tours?
Absolutely. And so I would say typically I recommend that students take some kind of notebook with them on the tours, especially if they're visiting 2 to 3 schools. They're not going to remember the difference, again, between those schools at the end of the day. And so the easiest way to remember is to, again, take photos and then take just notes of things that stand out to them or any of the questions that they might ask.
Great. So you mentioned here, check out the bulletin boards. What should you be looking at on bulletin boards?
Yeah, so bulletin boards are all over college campuses. You can find them in the library, administrative buildings, academic buildings, the student campus centers. And so I recommend looking at all of them. The academic buildings, you're going to find maybe some talks that are coming up within the departments from, they might have guest speakers coming, guest lecturers. You might find that they have get-togethers for that major, just little informal social events or bigger talks on campus. And the student centers, that's where you're going to see all the events that are happening on campus, whether it be concerts, comedians, any upcoming special events like that. And so you get an idea of what's happening on campus. Is this a campus where there's always events happening and students have something to do every single hour of the day if they wanted to? Are there, renowned speakers coming to campus? Is it a lively campus or, is it not? Obviously, if there's not a lot on the bulletin boards, we're not going to judge the campuses on that. But it does help when you can see what's happening on campus.
Especially when you're visiting schools that are a little bit further away from your home, you'll get a sense of what the campus is going to be like on the weekends from looking at those bulletin boards. Some schools, a lot of students are going to go home on weekends versus some schools, people are going to be there full time and they're going to be looking for social events, they're going to be looking for activities, and you can get a really good sense of it, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, now let's talk about some questions. So what should you ask current students and how do you find it? What do you do?
This is a great question. So when you're on the tour, obviously the tour guide is typically a current student. So that's going to be your first kind of point person that you can ask some of these questions. I've given a few guidelines here that I think make for some particularly good questions that could be asked of any student. Obviously, if you have a particular area of academic interest or sport or extracurricular interest that you want to pursue in college, you might want to customize your questions to kind of ask more specifics about your particular interests. But these questions kind of work for every student, and beyond the tour guide, you can also find current students to ask questions in the dining hall, just walking around campus. It might sound awkward and weird, but you would be surprised how many students love just answering questions from prospective students. I mean, most college students want to talk up their college and are really happy to help if you just stop them to ask them a quick question about the school.
it's a little bit like visiting a new city. Like locals,
Yeah.
I know I'm always so thrilled to talk about New York City to locals, and I'm so proud of being a New Yorker. I want to talk about New York, and college students on any campus are going to feel the exact same way. They're going to be proud of their school. They're going to want to tell you about all the great elements there and all the great things to do there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Great. And these are some questions just in case it's hard to read on as you're watching it. I'll read these questions. Why did you choose this school? Especially if there's a school with a big rivalry, that can be a great question to ask. I did my undergrad at UCLA, so a lot of students might ask, why would you pick UCLA over USC, or why would you pick USC over UCLA? There are lots of reasons for either school. What do students do on evenings and weekends? As I touched on about bulletin boards, you can also ask this of students. Your tour guide will certainly have his or her own answer, but they're not going to know the answer for every student, and it's going to be a different answer depending on who you ask. Things that you like most, things that you would like to change, and asking about what the social makeup is of students. If students are living in the dorms, if students are living on campus, what the social scene is like. It's really valuable to ask these questions.
One last thing I'll add about current students. Sometimes I hear families that go on tours and their kid just didn't click with the tour guide. And so because they didn't see themselves in their tour guide, they had a hard time picturing themselves at the school. So it's really important to ask other students on campus and spend that extra time after the tour to be able to ask other students. Because you can't judge the school entirely on one person that you meet. There's likely a lot of different types of people that attend that school. So it's important to get to know as much as you can other students besides your tour guide. Absolutely.
What about professors? Should you try to have some conversations with professors while you're there?
Absolutely. So there's a few ways you can do that. The best way, like Dory mentioned earlier, is to actually sit in on a class. And so if you can do that, you are making a good impression because you're showing that you're taking the time to really get to know the school. Again, demonstrating interest in a different way. You're also getting to know a professor in their teaching style and also kind of the classroom style, typical classroom style for that college to see if it really works well with your learning style. And I mean, it's an opportunity to see, is this a subject, is this a major that I'd be interested in at this school? What would it be like to be a student studying this at this particular school? So there's a couple of ways besides sitting on a class that you can talk with professors. Sometimes if you walk through academic buildings, you'll see that professors actually have their doors open. And just like I would say current students, professors are more than happy typically to answer, I would say, quick, brief questions. Professors are also very busy people. You don't want to dominate their time. But by asking just a quick question about their program, most of them are more than happy to provide more information about their particular program.
This is also something where a little bit of fore-planning can be really beneficial because, again, professors' email addresses are published. These are public email addresses, and most professors are going to be really happy to talk to prospective students. That's one way that you can definitely make yourself stand out, just by emailing a professor and asking them about their program, asking them about classes that they teach, and sort of getting to know them a little bit.
Absolutely. And you can take it even one step further and ask them, I'm going to be on campus in 3 weeks. I know you're likely very busy, but I would love to, take you to coffee and hear a little bit more about your program. Again, the expectation should be that's a quick 15, 20-minute conversation. And I would do that only if you have really researched this professor, you know what their research is about, and you're ready to come and have a very intelligent conversation about their academic area.
That's a great point, Natasha. Definitely don't do that and then just ask the professor, so what class do you teach?
Exactly.
Because that's not going to make a good impression.
Exactly. On the flip side, though, if you come and you say, I just read your book or I just read your research and I was really fascinated and I actually did my research on my own on this topic and have a really interesting discussion, that can be a really good impression.
Yeah, and that's absolutely super valuable. So here are some questions that you might want to ask professors, asking them about whether their classes are lectures or seminars, and the typical class size. That's going to be a really important issue for a lot of students. Some students who get distracted easily might really want to focus in on classes that are slightly smaller, whereas some students are going to thrive better in a big lecture where they're not going to feel as put on the spot. Asking about the advising, what sort of advising do students receive, whether that's only from an advisor or whether their advisors are also faculty members is an important question. Are professors available to students outside of class? What do office hours look like? How full are those office hours? Are students involved in research with professors? In general, most research is going to be with grad students, but in a lot of undergrad programs, you're going to find undergrad research opportunities. And that's a really, really great, valuable thing to A, find out about, and B, take part in if it's available.
And that's a big difference, I would say, also the liberal arts college. Liberal arts colleges don't have graduate students to do their research. So you're actually doing, you have really incredible research opportunities to work alongside professors at the undergraduate level.
Absolutely. Asking professors to describe what types of students do best either in the school or in their classes, and asking about who's teaching classes, if professors are teaching them, if TAs are teaching them, or if it's a mixture, and how to sort of really thrive at that school based on your learning style. All right, anyone else you should ask questions of?
Last but not least, the admissions representatives. So they're likely going to be leading your information session while you're on campus. And the information session gives you some general information about the school as well as kind of a step-by-step through the application process. So if you have the opportunity to interact with an admissions officer while you're there, I really encourage you to do so. If you aren't able to do it while you're on campus, of course, there are other ways you can do so by either contacting them via email or phone, or looking to see when they're going to be in your area for an information session, whether that's at your school or maybe you're stopping by a local college fair in order to, again, have another point of contact and demonstrate that interest.
Awesome. So asking, how do you review applications? Do you track and use demonstrated interest in the school as part of the admissions decision? Who is the typical student? Tell me about typical students. Talking about popular majors. A lot of admissions reps are going to be really excited to talk about popular majors, but they're also going to be excited to talk about majors that they think are good. When you ask what's distinctive about education here, a lot of reps are going to say, oh, I think this major is really, really interesting, and it's a small major, so that means you get a lot of focused interest. I know, as I said, I went to UCLA, which is a very big school, but I was in a very small major, which really made a big difference to me personally, and a lot of students that I've worked with find that they want to be in a small major or they want to be in a big major, meet a lot of different people. It's going to make a big difference. Any other questions you would ask admissions reps?
Just the final point I'll say actually about any of these questions is it really should be from the student. As of course, if you're on a tour, it's completely appropriate as a parent to ask questions. But I would say, especially with admissions reps, it really should be coming from the student. And if you are reaching out to an admissions rep, make sure you're not. If you're doing a phone call, it should be, again, brief. They are very busy people, especially during the fall season. Actually, all seasons. And then the final point I'll say is do your research and make sure that these aren't questions you can find online. If you're finding them online, you're wasting the other person's time, and you're wasting your own time. This is a time where you actually get to ask questions that you can't find the answers to online.
Right. So really asking about that admissions rep or students or professors' personal experience is going to be really, really valuable, and that's not something you can find as much online. And any question that you think you want to ask, just Google it beforehand. Make sure that it's that question is not easily available.
Exactly.
Awesome. So anything else you should do while you're on campus outside of the Q&A session and tour?
Absolutely. So these are a few ideas of things you can do while you're on campus. You, of course, do not need to do everything on this list, but I always encourage students and families to go a little bit off the beaten path while they're on a college campus. If you can eat in the dining hall, I think it is the best way to get to see a campus culture, their student body, and be able to interact with students on campus.
Absolutely. We already talked about sitting in on classes, sporting events. If such a thing is possible, that's going to be extremely valuable and helpful.
Definitely.
What about places that the tour doesn't take you, like a gym or an art museum, older buildings?
Definitely. So, a lot of times the gym at college campuses can be a little bit of a walk because it is such a big building. They don't have it right on the main campus. If you are an athlete and that is important to you, make sure you visit the gym. If you are thinking about pursuing art, go see the art museum, especially if it's a great one on campus. A lot of these buildings you can just walk into during the day. And so, make sure you take advantage of that. And if you want guidance with that, all the admissions buildings will have maps of campus and can point you in the direction of a specific area of interest.
In general, college tours are going to want to take you on the newest, nicest buildings. But it's really, really valuable to also see some of the older buildings, especially if you or your student already has an idea of what they want to major in. If you know that you want to major in engineering, you should definitely check out the engineering building, whether or not the campus tour takes you there, because you're going to be spending a lot of time there, and you want to make sure that you feel comfortable in that building, in that environment, with those students and with those professors. What about the college bookstore, interviewing? Is that something you show up and say, hey, can I interview today?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, you want to plan that in advance. This is why it's really important. I would just say another note about that with scheduling is often during the school break times, it is those tours fill up, right? It's a very popular time to tour. So if you are planning on visiting campuses during those popular times, please make sure that you plan well in advance. And that means, booking the tours and info sessions at least a month out, I would say. And then if possible, often, not every school will, but some schools will offer an interview. That interview would be on campus with an admissions counselor. That is another opportunity to make a great impression and demonstrate interest. Typically, interviews can never hurt you, they can only help you. And so if you are on campus, especially if you're visiting a place that's really far away and you don't think you'll be able to return, see if you can schedule an interview for while you're there.
This is also something where planning is really helpful. Talking to a coach or meeting with a faculty member of your academic interest. These are both things that should be planned out ahead. But if you are a serious student athlete and you're planning on playing sports in college, you should absolutely try to talk to a coach. Email the coach. Again, all of this information is available online. Same with faculty members of your academic interest. You can find out information from the admissions office or even from an office of student affairs or from the department that you're interested in, and just say like, hey, I'm going to be on campus at this time taking a tour. I would love to talk to a professor in this field. Who would you suggest I talk to? They're there literally to help. It's, that's a part of their jobs, and they would be really, really happy to talk to you. We talked about talking with current students, browsing the college library. I think that that's really, really valuable to get a sense of how students look and seem to feel and what the vibe is going to be, especially if you're in a study-heavy major. You're going to be spending a lot of time at the library. And also checking out the community surrounding the campus. Again, if you're at an urban school, that's going to be a very, very different community than if you're at a rural school. And you may feel more comfortable in one situation than in another. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It's wherever you feel most comfortable, wherever your student feels most comfortable.
As you can see, there's a lot to do. This is why I recommend maybe 2 tours in a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon if possible.
And with a large school, even with a small-ish school, you can spend all day on a campus and not see the whole thing. Most campuses, there's a lot to them. What should you do after the visit?
Great. So there's a few things you should do after the visit. The first of which, while it's still fresh in your mind, is to review your notes from the tour, maybe even those photos, and reflect on your experience. So did you have a really positive experience? What did you like about it, and what didn't you like about it? A-List has a really helpful college visit pro and con worksheet that I will send out to all the attendees of the webinar or anyone who signed up. It will help you. It's a document that's meant to help you reflect on your visits. And so I'll make sure to send that out after the webinar's over.
Should you also send thank you notes to people you met with?
Yeah, so I think it's always just good manners and polite and kind to send out a brief professional thank you note. That could include to the tour guide, to the admissions counselor. If you met with a professor or coach, then absolutely send them one as well. And this could be just in the form of a quick email. Obviously, you want to make sure that your email is spelling and grammar, approved. You maybe have a parent look over it if you're a student, and then make sure that you're sending it in a timely manner so that they remember who you are.
And that also ties in with maintaining communication. As you progress through your college application process, do keep in touch with the people that you met, the people that you want to stay in touch with. This correspondence also should come from the student, and you definitely don't want to overload professors or admissions counselors with an email every day. But this is something every couple of months when you've decided you definitely want to apply to a school, when you have finished your application process, when you've decided that you want to attend a school. These are all great times to reach out. This is really, really valuable. And in general, professors don't get as much of this correspondence as we think that they would or should. And a lot of professors are really happy to receive this kind of correspondence, and it definitely leaves a good impression. So, Natasha, you put together a couple of suggested itineraries for possible college visits. Tell me a little bit about these itineraries.
Sure. So this is something that A-List always does for their clients, is put together, so maybe a student says, I'm interested in schools around the Philadelphia area, the DC area, and so I always put together itineraries that cover kind of the main areas we talked about, in a small, medium, and large school. So these are just 4 areas in the U.S. Obviously, there's more than we've listed here, but just an example so you get an idea of what this might look like. And they're grouped by region. So we have, Pennsylvania, Southeast, Midwest, and Southern California. This way, students are seeing a variety of different schools, but they're all in the same vicinity.
One other thing that I'll mention is, especially early on in the process when you're first figuring out what schools you're most interested in, visiting 2 schools that are rivals is not necessarily going to be as helpful as you might think. In the Southern California region, we put UC Los Angeles, UCLA. If you're going to be in Los Angeles and you can visit UCLA or USC, sure, you could visit both. You could visit both in one day, but it would be much more valuable to visit a school like Pomona or another small school in the area that's going to give you a very, very different sense of what college can be like and what your experience can be like. Visiting 2 very large schools that are very campusy schools is going to be not quite as helpful early on. However, later on, visiting schools that are more similar so you can really fine-tune your choices is what's going to be most helpful and most efficient there. So we've mostly been talking about using your time off of school to go on college visits. I'm going to talk for just a quick second about things you can do aside from visiting colleges on that time off, some other valuable things you can do. And really it falls into 3 big categories. So you should be reading as much as you can. Your students should absolutely try to read a book over this break if they're not going on college visits. And in fact, even if you are going on college visits, if you're flying there, bring a book, read a book. This is my biggest my biggest piece of advice for students who are interested in really taking initiative and taking control of their academic futures. Read as much as you possibly can. This is the best thing you can do. Classics, nonfiction, modern literature, it's all good. You can also learn. This means either doing free e-learning. You can do this at home. You can do this on your own. Khan Academy is great. MIT OpenCourseWare is amazing. I take classes on MIT OpenCourseWare all the time. And sometimes I'll just say like, oh, I'm really interested in this. I'll just watch a couple of lectures. It's very low commitment. It's fascinating, and it gives you a really great idea of what courses, what majors are going to be like, and where your academic interests are. And you can also do more official, structured academic camps. A-List does offer, an SAT boot camp over that break. If you're not going on college visits, something like that can be really, really beneficial. Finally, planning. So researching schools, programs, and scholarships, especially early on in the process, is a really valuable thing. Working, work is always good, and it's always a beneficial thing to do, but especially if you have an area of academic interest, if you can find a short-term internship, if you can work part-time within that field of your academic interest, if you can do some research, that's really, really great. All of these things, reading, learning, planning, all of these fall into one big bucket, which is indulging your academic curiosity. And this is what schools want to see. This is what is going to make you a standout applicant, and it's going to set you apart from the crowd. If you have an area of academic curiosity and you can demonstrate that you're curious about it and that you're going to take initiative for your own education, you're going to be in really good shape. So Natasha, can you talk a little bit about A-List's advising services, just in a nutshell?
Sure. So in a nutshell, we walk families through every step of the process. We start with families as early as freshman year, and that could be helping them with anything that's geared towards college eventually. So typically with a freshman, we're working on maybe helping them apply to summer programs, identifying summer programs that would be a good fit for them. Maybe sophomore year, then we're actually helping them find internships that would be a good fit for them, and helping them through the college visits, right? Suggesting some college that might be a good fit for them. And then starting junior year, that's really when the college admissions process starts in earnest. And we help with every single step of the way. So starting with identifying colleges that would be a good fit, and then making sure eventually that they have a really balanced school list, which includes likely, possible, and reach schools. Managing every single part of the application process, including creating a timeline to make sure that students are staying on track. Helping with editing and brainstorming of every college essay. Of course, the main Common App essay is typically the largest essay that students will work on, and we'll spend the most time on that, and then we move on to all the supplemental essays for their schools.
I know with my own students, a lot of the advising that I do, it ranges so widely from exactly what that family needs. So I work with plenty of kids who've written a phenomenal essay, and they say, hey, Dory, can you just take a look at this, read it over, and maybe give me a couple of edits if there are things that you think I should change. And I'll say either like, this is great, you wrote a great essay, or I'll say, you should change this tiny little thing. And I also work with families who say, I have no idea what I want to write about. Can you help me brainstorm? And I'll help that student brainstorm and come up with some ideas for what he or she wants to write about and feels passionate about, and really shows off that student to their best. We also, of course, do tutoring services. We specialize in SAT, ACT, other standardized tests. We have some of the highest published score improvements in the industry. I've been looking at our competitors to try and find score improvements that are better than our average score improvements and our top score improvements, and I have not found any. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but as far as I can tell, we have the highest published score improvements in the industry. We provide our students with unlimited practice tests. All of our tutors go through 100 hours of training before they see their first students, and they also generally come to us with experience both with teaching and with teaching standardized tests. We have a no-risk tutor match. If you're not happy with your tutor, we guarantee we will find you a tutor that you will like and connect with. And we also have a dedicated family support team that's here during office hours, Monday through Friday, here to talk to you about college advising, here to talk to you about tutoring, to make sure everything's going well, to talk to you about other academic tutoring, and just to make sure that you and your student are really thriving and succeeding. Finally, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to take them. I don't know if any of you would have specific questions that we haven't covered yet, but I'm going to unmute everyone. Great, thanks, Natasha. Does anyone have things that we didn't cover, things that they'd like to discuss?
None from me. This is Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thanks for joining us. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. It was really a pleasure talking to you. That's the end of today's webinar. We are going to put this up on YouTube, so if you have any friends who you think would be interested in this, they can, of course, watch it. And they can also reach out to us at any time. My team's email address is tutorteam@alisteducation.com. Very, very easy.
And you can reach me at natashad@alisteducation.com.
Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Thank you.